Call the public hearing to order. My name is John Dennekamp, and I am here with Alexandra Brown for the Community Resilience Partnership, and we're going to discuss ways that the town can be more energy independent.
Yes. So as John said, my name's Alexandra Brown. I also go by Alex. I work with York County Soil and Water Conservation District. I'm a project manager there, and we have a grant through the Governor's Office of Policy and Innovation for the Future, which is the office that runs the Community Resilience Partnership, to act as a service provider and help towns enroll in the partnership so that they can then have access to grant funding. So I'm just going to go through some background information on the partnership so we can all get a little bit familiarized and on the same page about what this partnership does. So it's based off of the Maine Won't Wait 4-year climate action plan, which has 4 goals. 1, to reduce greenhouse gas emissions. 2, to avoid the cost of inaction by safeguarding communities and infrastructure and natural resources. 3, to foster economic opportunity by generating good, clean energy jobs and keeping energy spending within the state. And then 4, advancing equity to ensure that climate action benefits all of Maine's people. So the Community Resilience Partnership, also abbreviated as CRP, it provides access to local, tribal, and regional grants to reduce carbon emissions and prepare for climate change impacts. These are done through Community Action Grants, abbreviated CAGs, and that's for the planning and implementation of climate and resilience actions. These grants, towns can request, once they're enrolled, a minimum of $5,000 and then up to $75,000. That's for a single community. If communities work together, neighboring communities that is, they can request up to $175,000. All of this funding is no match. So that means the towns don't have to put any of their own funding up to receive the full amount, as long as they pick one of the 72 action items on the list. So you have to enroll in the partnership to be eligible for these grants. This is the CRP website. They have some recent pictures of the flooding events that happened last winter, just as an example of like what Maine is facing. So you can go to that website, maine.gov /climate/community resilience partnership, to get some more information on the program. And so when we talk about resilience, we're talking about the capacity for a community to anticipate, plan for, and mitigate the dangers and seize the opportunities associated with environmental and social change, and this includes adaptation and mitigation. So mitigation is any strategy or action that removes greenhouse gases from the atmosphere, and then adaptation is an ability for a system to prepare for and make adjustments to observed and anticipated impacts of climate change. Hello.
Hi.
Welcome. If you wouldn't mind just signing in, and you can grab this list here of action items we're going to discuss.
Okay.
And so the CRP enrollment process is a 3-step process. So the town completes a pair of self-assessments, which the town's already done. And that's basically just to assess like what the town has the capacity, what kind of projects they have the capacity to do, what is feasible for the town. So that way, we can organize ideas and then present that to the community. And then we're holding a community workshop right now to discuss the prioritized action items. Once we hold the workshop, the town just passes a municipal resolution, which just says they commit to enrolling in the partnership. And then I will submit all of the documentation of these 3 steps to the online portal. And then once I submit that online, you are immediately enrolled and eligible to apply for grants. So, as I said, you're eligible to apply for grants once you're enrolled. There's spring and fall deadlines. So this round of grant funding, the deadline to apply is December 17th at 5 p.m. They anticipate the next round of funding to be due sometime in August 2025. If you get a grant, you have to, it's a 2-year grant period, so you would then show what progress you've made on your progress, on the projects you've been working on, and by doing that reporting every 2 years on the grant, you stay enrolled in the partnership.
How often can we put in for a grant?
I believe if you complete a 2-year grant and you do your final reporting on that, you're eligible to apply.
Okay, so every 2 years.
Mm-hmm. Sometimes they have stipulations, so the last round of grant funding they did was only for communities who had never applied for a grant before, which was good because it gave them, new communities a little bit more of a competitive edge to get that funding. This round, it's open to all communities that are in the partnership, so sometimes they have stipulations, but it's usually open to everybody that's in the partnership. There's different strategy areas there's a list of 72 different action items, and they're broken up into different strategy areas, which includes transportation, modernizing Maine's buildings, reducing emissions, growing jobs and protecting natural resource industries, protecting the environment and promoting natural climate solutions, building healthy and resilient communities, investing in climate-ready infrastructure, and engaging Maine people. Acton, through their self-enrollment process, has identified action items in these categories. So everything except category A and E, which is this list that I've handed out here. And so I'm going to run through the action items that are on this list, and then just make a note as I go through them, circle things that you think are good ideas, maybe things you don't like, and then we'll discuss. It's pretty casual, we don't need to do this as like a big formal thing. This is really just so we can get your input on what the town has ID'd as potential project ideas. So the first area, strategy B, modernizing Maine buildings, we have B1, adopt and execute a plan for energy efficiency building envelope weatherization improvements for municipal/tribal buildings, collaborate with local school districts for school building improvements. B2, upgrade to energy efficient interior lighting in municipal/tribal buildings. B3, upgrade to energy efficient appliances in municipal/tribal buildings. B4, install a heat pump system or VRF system for heating and cooling and heat pump water heating in municipal/tribal buildings. And B5, upgrade street lights and exterior lighting for municipal/tribally owned facilities with energy efficient LED lighting, and minimize light pollution with downlighting where possible. So that's everything they identified in strategy area B as potential projects. Strategy area C, reducing emissions through clean energy. We have C1, conduct a baseline for energy usage by municipal/tribal government, including electricity, heating, and transportation fuels and other energy sources. C7, install a renewable energy project, solar, wind, geothermal, anaerobic digestion, etc. on municipal/tribal property, e.g. school, rooftop, wellhead, protection area, landfill, brownfield site, etc. Strategy area D, growing jobs and protecting natural resources. We have D1, adopt policies that enable, support, or incentivize local food production and consumption, including community gardens. Strategy area F, build healthy and resilient communities. F2, update the local or county EMA hazard mitigation plan to address changing/future conditions and identify specific strategies to reduce vulnerability and increase resilience to climate change impacts. F6, participate in the National Flood Insurance Program, abbreviated NFIP. F7, enroll in the NFIP's community rating system, CRS, at class 9 or better, reducing flood insurance premiums for the community residents. F12, adopt a low impact design, LID, standard for stormwater management. F14, develop and implement an extreme temperatures emergency plan, including strategies that increase the use of cooling centers by residents. Strategy area G, invest in climate ready infrastructure. We have G2, Develop a capital investment plan that A, identifies vulnerable municipal/tribal facilities and assets, and B, prioritizes resilience and improvements and/or new construction. G3, improve and protect drinking water, wastewater treatment, and stormwater facilities to reduce physical damage and sustain function during extreme weather events. G4, adopt a policy that prioritizes green infrastructure to manage stormwater in developed areas. G5, adopt DEP stream smart crossing guidelines as standard practice for culvert and bridge improvements. Identify vulnerable crossings and apply for DEP improvement funds. Strategy Area H, engage Maine people. H1, establish or recognize an official committee for community stakeholders. That would be like a climate committee. H2, create a climate change education and outreach and engagement program focusing on mitigation and adaptation for residents and businesses. H3, amplify public health advisories for climate-related health and weather events, such as air quality advisories, extreme heat or cold events, extreme storms, power outages, waterborne disease outbreaks, harmful algal blooms, vector-borne disease trends, etc. H4, engage youth in resilience, clean energy, and energy use reduction. H5, engage populations that are vulnerable to climate impacts and resilience, clean energy, and greenhouse gas reductions. H6, create and support an energy reduction campaign or challenge among businesses. H7, initiate a bulk purchasing program with a vendor or vendors to provide low-cost equipment such as heat pumps and solar for interested residents and businesses. So those are what the town has identified as potential projects that could work based on the self-evaluations they did. And so we just want to get your input on what you think, if there's any you're particularly in favor for, if there's ones you do not want to see funded, if there is a big picture idea that's not on this list that you want to talk about, or maybe a specific idea, feel free to bring that up too. This is your time. We want your input on this because, like I said, the town is could be eligible for up to $75,000 in no match funding, and so we want the community's input on what they want that money spent on. So I'm going to open up the floor to you guys.
Well, there's a lot that applies, especially to everyone.
Yes.
There's three times as much.
Yeah,
on this
it's a
sheet.
huge list.
Yeah.
But
Yeah.
a lot of it just doesn't apply to us.
Especially with our lake situation, the algae bloom and waterborne diseases, as well as the water runoff. We're trying to deal with that, have been trying to deal with that for 20, 25 years or so. And then we've got a lot, we are ridges and lakes, is Acton.
Yeah.
So we've got storm runoff from the ridges that go into the lakes, and a lot of houses in between. There's just, I know that the school has done, upgraded their lighting. They did that quite a few years ago,
Right.
and they're right on top of that. But then also, the school and the town hall are the only public water supplies we have in town. And there's the salt, the town salt and sand shed, which is not real far away from the school water supply, actually.
Yeah.
And the school has a well. And I know it's tested minimally, yearly. But that's something, that has to be kept in mind, certainly with all of this.
And it's good if you go to their website, you can click on a link that will bring you to what other towns have done
Yeah,
around the state, and it's pretty interesting. I did an online webinar with Alex's group, and I I was more interested in towns our size.
Yeah,
Because a lot of the people who were in that meeting were bigger towns and looking for different things. And so if you go to the website and you click on that link, you can look at the small towns,
yeah.
you know, and see what they did and how much they got. So I didn't realize until tonight, grant has just gone from 50,000 to 75,000.
Yeah, they used to cap it at 50.
That's, you can get a lot done with that kind of
Yeah,
money.
yeah.
Right.
Yeah, I know, as I say, I know that the school has been right on top of some of these things. But I'm thinking about the fire department, I mean, that facility is not young. And I believe that they've had some problems as far as, water draining away from the building.
Right.
And I don't know about their lighting or anything, however.
Right, I was thinking about that in here and over there.
Yeah. I mean, sort of on a downward slope here, but. That's-
Yeah, we're not at the top of the hill.
No, we're not at the top of the hill, unfortunately.
Yeah, no, you guys gotta.
Kind of piggyback on Nancy's idea of the fire station. I don't know if their air purification system is where it should be. You know, are they PCPs? I'm not sure. I shouldn't be having this conversation, but whatever is present in the exhaust that's likely to cause various cancers. Would something like that potentially qualify, or is that too isolated for a given department?
So a lot of the action items are pretty broad. They did, however, just introduce a new stipulation for this round of grant funding that structural infrastructure, like stormwater infrastructure, buildings, culverts, bridges, structural things for buildings aren't included, or you can't use the grant funding for that. You can use the grant funding for planning and engineering. Updating an air purification system, I would put that probably in the same category as like putting in a heat pump system, which is, the grant does cover. So it's something I'd have to check with GoPIF on, but there's a possibility that
It
it
might
could
be
be
worth
used.
asking, right? And if it is, great, we
Yeah.
can think about that, and if not, it doesn't hurt to ask.
Yeah, and you can, another thing I didn't mention, so this is all no match grant funding. If you do one of the 72 action items that is included in the program or the program lists out, you can do something different and go off of that list. It would just require a 10% cash match from the town. So it's not that going off the list is completely out of the question. You would then just have to do a 10% cash match, yeah.
And is this a given, we apply and we receive, or are we just under consideration?
It's not a given, however, because of the population size of Acton, you are granted additional points on your application, which gives you guys a little bit more of a competitive edge than some of the larger communities out there.
This is something that the Private Roads Association really should be in on.
Well, I guess, yeah, as far as the culverts go,
Yeah.
yeah,
You know,
I kind of forgot
just
about
with the
that.
stormwater and everything. Also, we have a capped landfill at the transfer station.
Yep.
I don't know if that's ever been monitored or if it's, obviously we're not building a road over it or anything like that, but it'd be nice to have that monitored at some point, because that can be a source of pollution.
Mm-hmm.
So the application has to come through the town or be signed by the selectmen or whatever.
Yeah, so the municipal resolution to enroll should be signed by, I'm assuming,
Probably on board.
the select board. And then I'll help the town, as a service provider, I help the town with the grant application, but it ultimately needs to come from the town. The contact information on the grant is gonna be under, a town representative, probably will be under John's name as the main point of contact for the grant.
And what's the timeline on getting this grant together? Or,
The grant
I mean, the
application is
rather.
due
For the
December
grant.
17th at 5 p.m.
I'm sorry, say that,
It's due December 17th at 5 p.m.
of this year?
Yes.
Oh,
We're,
Kind of getting late in the game.
Yeah, they just,
we were
they
late to get
just
on the
rolled out
bus.
the program application, a couple weeks ago.
Oh,
Yeah, so they only give you a few months to put it together.
yeah,
Their next round, they anticipate being rolled out sometime in August 2025, so this upcoming summer. So they do the grants twice a year, biannually. If something happens and let's say like we can't get this grant application at a time, but you guys are enrolled in the program, because enrolling in the program once we pass the municipal resolution takes no time. That's easy. You know, I can still help you with the grant application in August. Not as much as I'd be able to help you right now because our service provider grant to help Acton expires in March, but I can still provide some assistance,
okay.
yeah, to help you outline and that kind of stuff.
Oh,
So we need
We're
lots
gonna
of
do,
ideas.
Yeah.
yeah,
What's that?
tight timeline.
Yeah.
Yeah, so it sounds like there's some interest in protecting drinking water. We mentioned stormwater, so that would be action item G4 and action item G5. Identifying vulnerable crossings and using green infrastructure to manage stormwater.
I think the school still has a boiler, you know, I mean, that's a potential thing of maybe upgrading it to a heat pump or
Yeah.
something.
I think this building needs a lot of upgrade too. We had an engineering firm come in here and I think some of the items were heat pumps and window efficiency windows, getting rid of,
The window we have, I don't think the heat pumps are all that old now.
oh, they're not,
I
okay.
think they're only a couple of years old.
Okay,
Is there a heat pump in this room?
Yeah, there is, yeah, that surprised me.
Yeah,
I was
right there.
amazed. Yeah, these windows I don't think are particularly energy efficient. And, I'm sorry, this building needs a new foundation. I think a hard decision has to be made as to what we do with this building.
That's a whole other discussion.
I mean,
Yeah.
some decisions have to be made.
We can have a public forum about that sometime.
Okay. I'll be quiet.
I mean, there's some short-term things we can do to be energy efficient though in this building.
But, let's face it, it's a 200-year-old building, you know.
And I'm
The energy efficient ideas than picnic tables in the parking lot, but that's just not,
Right,
you know.
yeah. Yeah,
we could put solar here, or we could put solar over at the fire station,
or the school for that
or the
matter.
school. Yeah.
I think the
True.
school gets enough funding, I don't know. I'm a little, you know, the school has a big budget, they have extra money, let's put some money somewhere else that doesn't go to the school. I think people would be more receptive to doing something besides giving the school more money. That's just my opinion.
Okay.
I mean, the lakes, I mean, you talk about the lakes, what can we do? The private roads.
Exactly.
Yeah, it's
That,
like,
that's our tax base.
So for the
Yeah.
stormwater
Yeah.
runoff
Yeah,
for the
that's
lakes.
important.
that's our
Is that
valuable
something we
asset.
have to
Absolutely.
Yeah, they talk about the roads, the roads are not a
Road
valuable
commissioner
asset, it's the lake.
and
Right, right.
identify
And, you
areas.
know, they talk about.
Yeah.
Probably, yeah, I mean, you'd wanna have some, if you were gonna do some type of stormwater site, or at least like have funding to do the planning and engineering for that, I think having candidate sites for an application would be a good idea. However, G5 for adopting the stream smart crossings, the identifying vulnerable crossings is built into that project idea, so that wouldn't require a ton of legwork for the application because you're doing the site searching as part of the grant
Okay.
funding.
All right.
You know, the funded grant work. But that's just for stream crossings. If we're talking about managing stormwater, not as stream crossings, you want to do something like, let's find places to do green infrastructure to manage stormwater. that you'd probably want to do some candidate site scouting for the grant application. Yeah.
I know, like
Well,
Nancy
also-
said, all of our lakes are basically at the bottom of the hill.
Yeah.
Yeah,
Big
Yeah.
hills.
it is,
Yeah.
yeah. I mean, that's the geography of the town.
Some of the lakes, we've done 319 grant work through York County Soil and Water. So there is that to consider as like background information for the grant, that the town has done this work before. On H Road, we did,
The water barriers, yeah.
yeah, that York County Soil and Water, that was through a grant we had with, and the town was a part of that, and we
Did they
implemented
put
that work.
up the swales to
Yeah.
slow
Yeah,
down the water?
on the downhill.
That was from DEP 319 grant funding. So the town has projects that you can use as background information of like, this is what we've done so far, this is what we want to build upon. You have the information to build off of, so.
Yeah, because a lot of these, concerned roads,
Yeah,
yeah, and the smart water crossings, and I know that it's a big thing for the road committees as well,
yeah,
because we are so vulnerable to flooding, and a lot of people in town certainly need, or have to be enrolled in the flood insurance program.
Sean, has there been a lot of warrant 43 applications that don't qualify for, road associations or private roads that have wanted funding but didn't qualify because they weren't statutory or?
That part, I don't know that much about Article 43. I mean, I know what Article 43 is. I don't know how many road associations have applied for it. As they said last night, there's 7 or 8 roads that are on the list, and there's 4 or 5 that usually apply for that year.
Well, and we're Tattle Street, so we're one
Okay.
of them.
You're-
But I know there's really strict requirements to even get any of that money, so I'm wondering if there's other roads that have culvert problems but can't fix them because they don't qualify, they don't have enough money and they don't qualify for the warrant 43. I don't know if we can introduce another program.
My understanding was, once Article 43 expires at the end of June, the road committee is looking to rewrite it to allow, more lake associations
Yeah,
to apply. So not necessarily just road association.
yeah, but they would have to raise town funds, that'll have to go in front of a town hall meeting. And I'm
right.
just thinking this is a avenue to get some cash flow towards before that happens.
Right.
But I don't know I don't know what associations we would reach out to and say, do you have a project? I'm on a road association and it's like 2 people do this. I did 319 grants and it's like you get 1 or 2 people doing all the work, so it's
Yeah.
hard to
Yeah.
do it.
And
Yeah,
and it would have to go through the town.
Well, it's true, it would have to go to
Yeah.
the town, right,
Yeah.
but it wouldn't be so restrictive as what they do today.
Yeah,
Dave says there's only 5 roads collecting more than 43, that's because you have to meet all these criteria.
right.
This might be more open for fixing
yeah.
runoff into the lake, that's,
Overflow, yeah.
I will
And
say
flooding.
that, the G5, the one that has to do with the stream smart crossings, part of that is applying for DEP improvement funds, which are the 319 grants, or the 604B grants. No, it's just the 319 grants, I'm sorry. The 604B is, creating the watershed plan.
But the grant has to be applied for by the town, right?
Yeah. Yeah. And I mean, you can partner with people for it, but
Then they
yeah.
have to appropriate it to that and whether they would do it to a private road. It's sort of,
that's,
yeah,
I mean, 319, so
Pretty
you're saying you
complicated.
have to apply for it, you have to apply to a 319 grant, which I thought they had done away with, but you have to apply for a 319, be approved, and then that qualifies for G5.
So applying for the 319 grant is done through G5. So you adopt the Stream Smart Crossing guidelines as standard practice. You identify your vulnerable crossings and then apply for the 319 grants or show, you know, evidence that you're in the process of applying for the 319 grants. Yeah, so it's kind of like the legwork that would go into building a 319 grant application essentially, is identifying your candidate sites and what projects you want to work on. And, you know, 319 grants, it's a lot of work.
I know, that's
So,
right.
yeah, it's a big ask, but you can get some pretty important work done through them, so. And this would at least give you funding to put in the legwork for a really strong grant application, because it does take time to build those applications out.
Right, and we've got 2 months.
Yeah. Well, for this one, yeah, but then you would, if you, let's say you wanted to, if you got this grant funding for $75,000, that would give you 2 years to then build out a 319 grant application.
On top of it.
Yeah.
What is a 319 grant application? I don't know that.
It's, you know, you have to identify a pollutant and you have to be on a watershed. It's just a
Okay.
lot of paperwork. You have
Yeah.
to get owners sign off. You have to, we did it on Tattle Street, we had a lot of runoff into the lake. And we just, you know, we put all kinds of improvements into the road, so we stopped the runoff. And we got a lot of 319 money because it qualified. And they help fill out the paperwork, but you have to get DEP, you have to get
Mhm.
permitting, you have to fill out, like I said, a bunch of paperwork, and the owners sign off, and
There's
there's
a lot of reporting.
a lot of
Yeah.
reporting, yeah.
Yeah.
Okay,
Yeah.
Maybe that's
It's
not, you
yeah.
know, something. And you gotta get people, there's 3 people at this meeting, you know, so then you gotta figure out who's gonna really help with this, so.
yeah.
Maybe we don't tackle something so ambitious, I don't know.
Yeah.
I don't mind helping, but, like I said, get 1 or 2 people.
I mean, even just coming up to identify things, more people would have, you know, brought other issues to the table that we might not be aware of.
Yeah.
You know, we're on 13th Street, so our, you know, our culverts are all new, they're all in good shape.
Mhm.
You know, there are trouble spots, but whether that, you know, Milton Mills Road, there's always this washout. I mean, that might be good use of funding and pretty easy to document, but does it fit the criteria?
Yeah, you
You
could
know,
do
it's
the
not
planning
falling
and
into-
engineering. Yeah, for construction. You just,
And you got the stormwater crossing on Sanborn Road,
Yes.
just before Jim's house that turns into a river.
Oh, coming down off the mountain. Yeah,
You know, that's pretty bad.
yeah.
So between those 2 spots, right around the Milton Mills, Sanborn Road area, you know, there's a lot of storm water there that is gonna just deteriorate those roads.
yeah.
Right, but is it feeding into the watershed? I mean, would it be nice? Yes, but is
Everything
it
does.
going to, well, ultimately,
Yeah, oh, yeah.
ultimately, but if
Goes
it's
into Mousen.
going through, you know, 3 feet of sand and has some
Yeah,
cleansing to it before it gets there.
Mhm.
Yeah, you would want to assess like what the priority is and what the impact would be, because there's always, you know, when you have runoff, there's always some type of non-point source pollution that's occurring through that.
Of course.
How big of an impact that has, you know, you need to monitor and figure that out and say, is it worth it to apply the grant funds to fix this, or can we get more bang for our buck somewhere else?
Well, if we have-
Yeah,
Right?
If we
Yeah.
have 5 or 6 sites around town that are like that, and we
Yeah.
think the roads are gonna be undermined,
yeah.
to use the grant money to fix all of them, or just one?
You can the CRP grant funding you can use for planning and engineering. Implementation, the reasoning for this round is that I think, well, what Ashley explained to me, and Ashley runs the grant program through CRP. There's a lot of grant opportunities now for infrastructure. I'm assuming that is cropping up from all of the infrastructure issues that happened with these past winter storms. And now there's more grant funding on the table to repair infrastructure. So they don't want people using CRP funding for infrastructure or the implementation of fixing infrastructure, but you can use it to make a plan for that. Yeah, so, we'll see if that stipulation sticks or if it changes for next round. It's kind of, each round of funding is a little bit different with their stipulations and that kind of stuff. But the planning and engineering to fund that is still a valuable piece of information, portion for the towns to get funding for, because engineering especially can be expensive, and that stuff, so yeah. And then something I do want to mention is that, so we have this big list here. You don't need to pick just one of these for the grant. You can combine. So what a lot of towns do is they pick their top 2 to 3, maybe 5, depending on if towns have extra money they want to put up as match, even though you don't have to do that. And make that into one big grant application, because there's different size projects on here, right? You wouldn't need $75,000 to fix or to replace lighting, So you could do a smaller project paired with something maybe a little bit bigger, and request, up to $75,000 to do that. So what I've seen towns do before is they will do some type of outreach, whether that's establishing a climate committee for the town, doing some type of education component, and then a physical project itself. So you have a team to kind of manage that project, just so you have the full information of what other towns have done. And so it's not just one of these that the town needs to settle on. You can combine.
Any other comments or questions?
I think it's really interesting. I just wish we had more lead time. It just seems it could take us 2 months to even figure out, which items we kind of wanted to choose from. And by the time we got that nailed down, it's December 17th.
So so the December deadline is for us to get the grant application approval, or to get
Have the grant application submitted.
submitted?
Yeah, so the purposes of tonight, so the town took 72 action items and narrowed it down to this list. And so we just wanted to get your thoughts on those and see which ones on this list people were more in favor of. Ultimately, the decision of which one is going to be up to John and the rest of the select board. But we're going to use your feedback and the information from the town self-evaluations that they've already done to make that decision.
Can you change your mind? Can we pick 5 and then get approval and then say, well, we changed our mind, we're gonna do different ones?
Once the grant application is submitted, no.
Oh, yeah.
You could pick 5 and just focus on 1 or 2. So, right, we could do that.
Yeah. Yeah, I mean, whatever we put in the grant application, you want that solidified, so you don't want to put something in there that you don't think you're ultimately going to be able to work on. Sometimes it helps to be a little bit more conservative. If you don't think you have the capacity to combine the 2 or 3 of these and you want to just do one big project, you can do that too. It's really whatever works best for the town, and what the town thinks they have the capacity to do. Yeah.
So if we pick 5 things that we put on an application, we have 2, and it gets approved, we have 2 years to complete them.
Mm-hmm.
How much do you need to identify up front by December 17th? What kind of details?
You would need the full project proposal on the grant.
Engineering and all,
Yeah, you want to have a decent plan, but you want your grant application to be competitive, and so they want to see a well thought out project idea. And you need to have a budget narrative for that, and what your tasks are and what your expected outcome is and that kind of stuff. And so if you don't have those ideas fully fleshed out, the chances of you getting funding decrease a little bit.
Yeah.
If you go to the website, is there a template of the grant application?
Yes, there is. They have that online. And I can share with John, applications other towns have submitted, so you can see like how towns have structured them. Yeah,
That would be a
yeah,
Yeah, I was gonna ask.
certain.
Yeah.
Good shot,
yeah.
just to see what they're asking,
Sure, and see how they're asking for it.
right?
Yeah, and then, so I just did this with Sanford, and what I did with them is I outlined the grant application. And it took us like a month to put it together. So I outlined it for them, and then had their city planner and, you know, some other people, I think, helped her out with it, kind of fill in the more town-specific information that they had on their end. So we worked collaboratively on it, and I'm gonna do the same for you guys. I'm gonna outline the application for you, and then have you fill in the town-specific stuff, and, you know, we're gonna work together to get the application in, so. I think we have enough time.
In certain part, there's so many different parts of the town that this applies to.
Yeah.
To get everybody together.
Yeah.
And figure out your priorities.
Yeah, and I mean, I would think of this as your first round of grant funding, so this isn't gonna be this, ideally won't be the only opportunity the town has for this type of funding. If you wanna do a project, for this first one, and then you'll maybe have something to build off of, in 2 years, you know, after the 2 year period that you do that project, and then another grant opportunity will roll out, and you can kind of work in stages, you know?
So I might have missed it, so if we are conservative and we just say we want to focus on modernizing main buildings, right, focus on energy efficiency, and that gets approved, we have 2 years to finish that, and we're not eligible to apply again during that 2 year period?
Correct, yeah, so it's, yeah, so if you're holding a community action grant, you can't apply for another one, you have to finish out that one before you apply for another one. And you'd wanna pick a specific action item, like under modernizing, like whether that's B1, B2, B3, whatever it is, and then you build out your grant application based on that 1 or 2 action items that you have on there.
Can you apply for a couple, finish them, and then apply within that 2 year period, as long as you've completed the first?
I don't believe so. I think if you're holding an active grant, you can't apply for.
Even if it's been completed and,
Yeah, I mean, like, if you did all your reporting and you submitted your final report and closed it out, potentially, that's something I'd have to ask Ashley about. I don't know if any town has ever done that before. I think most towns, they usually take the full 2 years to do the projects they have proposed.
I'm just thinking we can hit a couple easy ones.
Oh, yeah, like if you're doing if you're replacing the lighting,
Get the
yeah.
ball rolling, so we're on their radar.
Yeah.
If we can come up with a couple little things, you know,
Yeah.
in a couple of months, I think that's more reasonable than getting
Yeah.
engineering and testers out here. I don't know that we have results. I don't know if we get a return
Don't
phone
know if
call.
you're an engineer.
Right,
You
right.
know?
Right, we concentrate on where we're gonna get the biggest bang
I
without the
believe-
most,
Yes.
Legwork.
Work
I mean,
at
it's
it.
true. Grants are a lot of work.
Our bridges are very, very vulnerable, but unfortunately, most of them are controlled by the state of New Hampshire, and we don't have an awful lot of say about it,
Mhm.
you know?
I think technically we work the bridges together,
Yeah.
but obviously we need Milton or Wakefield's help with anything we want to do.
Well, Milton, I mean, look at the bridge on the end of Milton Mills Road. It's down to 1 lane. I mean, that's pretty iffy.
And that's a lifeline. I
Oh,
mean, no one's taking that very seriously. I mean, it's only this big, but if it falls to the ground, we're doomed.
Yeah, yeah. Well, you go across Tattle and use the other bridge, but
Sorry.
Is there an
Not
existing
Town,
project?
I'm sorry.
I was gonna say, I'm trying to think where you're gonna
Hopper, is it Hopper
I
Road?
like the idea of
No, the little road that goes, you come down Milton.
Oh, French Street.
French Street, that's what I meant.
updating municipal buildings. I know that's something Lisa brought before, and even prior to that, we talked about needs here. What about insulation, rodent control? I feel like that's something, we've already done engineering on that. We've gotten a survey work done on that we could base it off of. And it might also address a need that people have voiced, because
Yeah, it's one of our.
I think, when I saw this grant earlier, that was, and I saw it could be done in municipal, that was one of the first things I thought, is that we already have some of the legwork done, an idea, we could focus on this, something in this budget frame that we could use, whether it's insulation to prevent rodents, what, like, if that would help with heating costs potentially. So that was where I was
I thought.
really hopeful for this grant for this building.
Would that qualify?
What specifically do you have planning and engineering done for this building? Was it?
No,
We had an engineering firm come, they kind of just looked at, I'm not fully full of the scope because it was done before my time on the select board, but they came and did a review of some recommendations and suggestions for this building, and I know it's something that a lot of town folks have voiced, so that's what something I'd like to look into, and see if there's
Yeah.
anything that could fall under, because I believe it's a municipal building updating and stuff like that, and I was
Yes.
hoping that maybe that could be something that, even if we need to redo it again, we at least have our starting point of know what we're looking at. We can talk to an engineer, a company who did that survey, who kind of did that work, and say, can we do more specific tailored project, but
I think they had a facilities assessment done.
Yeah, so there is modernizing main buildings. There's a plan for energy. You can do a plan for energy efficient building weatherization improvements,
yeah.
energy efficient interior lighting improvements, energy efficient appliances, and heat pumps.
And that's also something I know we talked about just privately about having for the downstairs, a system, I know in a previous, but there's things that I think we could look into potentially, at least with this building, because I know that's something that people have constantly voiced concerns about, and I feel like most people, I don't see anyone who would be against that
Right.
and making an investment into these buildings.
Oh, no, I don't think so either.
Can you define appliances,
Um,
like refrigerators, I mean, things like that, that just are big energy draws?
yeah, I think it's like really like heating systems, probably like the electronics and that kind of stuff, like anything like electronic in the
Okay.
building, like you would want to update that to like an energy efficient. If you have refrigerators or that kind of stuff, then that would apply under that, yeah.
And I bet you we can
We're
find
just,
some
so we have
things.
a really tight deadline, we need to have applications in by the middle of December.
Yeah, December
Alright,
17th,
alright.
but I think that would be something we could look at, and
I hate to not get something from it, but, look at some of the things that we can do easily,
Yeah,
just
yeah,
in any of the buildings, all of the buildings.
yeah.
Mhm.
yeah, and if you,
Yeah.
because, this community has older municipal buildings and, there's definitely some feasible projects for energy or municipal building upgrades on here that I think would be very easy to put a grant application together for. Given the age of the buildings, I think it would be a competitive grant application, especially if you have community support for it. And you can demonstrate that in your grant application, it would be competitive. And you weren't here for this, but because of Acton's population level, you get an extra 5 points on your grant application, which gives you a little bit more of a competitive scoring wise edge, because they score the applications that are submitted and the highest scored ones are given the awarded funding.
So question, you said that there was a couple things that you feel like could be easy to do. Would you be able to point those out for us, that we could see if one of those would be concerns that we would take into consideration?
Yeah, I think the lighting upgrades is an easy project. And replacing heat pumps, I think that's something that we could put an application together for quickly. Budget wise, like I think it'd be easy to build a budget out for that
Okay.
on a grant application and justify that project.
What about the renewable energy too?
Yeah, or the renewable energy, I think that one's under, given our timeline, would be harder to build out a budget narrative for, and get all the pieces you need together to make that, to argue a like well thought out, solid project.
Right, just to go for energy efficiency
Yeah.
and renewable, I mean, you don't have to make a whole huge argument.
Yeah,
You don't have to give engineering studies.
No,
Yeah.
just a couple of photographs would,
Just send them
Yeah.
a picture of these.
right? I mean, these are beautiful, but
They're vintage.
that they are. Aren't we all, Nancy?
There's a lot of people that won't get
I see the
rid
beauty
of them.
in it. Not the function, but the beauty.
Right.
Mhm.
But I was just thinking that earlier, you're right, they are. But if you only get one shot at this for a number of years, it almost seems like it would make sense to take your time and really, get something big
Focus.
done.
But you have to pull it all together before December 17th.
Right.
Or August,
Oh,
or
wait.
next August.
Yeah.
What
Or
is,
next August, yeah.
so what would tell us the difference between applying now and waiting until August?
there's not really that much of a difference. The only difference is that I don't have the program statement for August. They're not gonna release that again until a couple months before the deadline. So if they put in specific stipulations in grant, we won't be aware of that until they release it. I have all the information for the December grant now.
And you said we're gonna lose you in March?
Yeah, and then also the service provider grant for Acton expires in March. And I can still be of assistance beyond that time, it's just gonna be more limited.
A limited
Yeah.
capacity.
Yeah. So I think there's enough time to get a December application in. You just wanna do something where you're not starting from square one. If you already have legwork for certain things in, and you know it's something the town, or you know the community members are in favor of, and it's gonna be beneficial for the town, I think for your first community action grant, it makes sense to do something like that. Not saying that's what you have to do. I think that's like your best shot at success for getting your initial round of funding. And then you demonstrate the progress you've made, you stay enrolled in the program, and you remain eligible for future rounds of grant funding and can build out from there. You know.
do remain eligible.
You do remain eligible, yeah. So this won't be your only opportunity for funding.
Okay.
Just
Every
like-
2 years,
Yeah.
you'll be eligible for more funding.
Could even do instant on hot water, since the hot water's pretty hard to come by around here.
I don't know, I've washed dishes in there many times and I've burned my hands plenty.
Good for you.
But
Yeah, they do
but it's
have
not
the
a heat pump,
water
water
heat
water
pumps.
heater, so,
Yeah.
Oh, it is, okay. It's just in the bathrooms and it's sort of slow.
okay, yeah, no, go in the kitchen.
Ah,
Does anyone know where the hot water heater is in this building?
I think the one in the kitchen is under the sink. I think there's one in there.
So not a benefit to like keeping
So
the
we-
basement dry and trying to
Not
alleviate
in
some
this
of the
building, no.
rodent issues. New windows were part of the program?
Yeah, I think you could justify that into action item B1, which is the weatherization improvements.
yeah,
I mean,
are-
these don't look old, I
No,
can't
these
tell
are
if
not
they're
old,
looking
yeah.
like they're,
These are replaced.
They
Yeah.
were replaced
right, but some of
recently.
the other ones
the other
in
part of
the
the
back
building.
office. I mean, I think we could
Yes,
cobble
you're
something
right.
together and
You're
have a
right.
very good
Yep.
shot at it without a huge undertaking of time for a
Yeah.
couple of people, and instead of driving around town looking for trouble
Yeah, well, and the
sources
energy,
that are kind of
Yeah.
outside our
but
scope.
the energy efficiency that can all encompass that.
And how do we enroll?
So the town did their self-evaluation, so I have the self-evaluations. Right now, we're doing the public workshop, which I'm documenting. The town needs to, after this, pass a municipal resolution, which I have sample language for. And it needs to be done on town letterhead, just basically saying we're committed to enroll in the Community Resilience Partnership. You can list out what projects you want to do, you don't have to though. They just want to know you're committed to enroll.
Okay.
And then you send that to me, and then I submit on the town's behalf the self-evaluations, documentation of the workshop, and the municipal resolution to an online portal. And you're immediately enrolled and can apply for grant funding once that happens.
And where does the resolution come from? Is that something that the select
Select
board
board.
ratifies? Okay.
Yes. Yeah.
As opposed to like town meeting or
Do
something
you have a
like that?
template for something like that?
Yeah, I have sample language for the resolution that I'm gonna send over to John.
Okay.
And it's really fill in the blank. Yeah, so it should be pretty straightforward for you guys to do. And then, yeah, like I said, enrolling is easy. I just enrolled Shapley the other day. It took me like 10 minutes to get everything in, and they're enrolled. And you know, you could in theory submit your grant application and enroll at the same time, but like we need more time to put the grant application together. So I'm gonna enroll first. In the meantime, also we'll start working on the grant application. So we'll have that ready by December 17th at 5
We
p.m.
also could have partnered with Shapley. It was one of the options that Alex gave us. But it's too hard to work on something that's gonna
hold the
benefit
money.
both,
Yeah.
Yeah.
you know, so.
And it's on the table for future, if you know, if the towns want to come together in 2 years and say, hey, let's shoot for the $175,000 and do a joint project that benefits both the town, you know, that's 100% on the table, even if you don't do it.
And
this
there's
way.
also
That's a
another,
Yeah, that's a possibility with all the,
Yeah,
but there's
water
also more
bodies
money
that we
available
share.
that way too.
yeah.
yeah.
But it's trying to figure out,
I do have a question,
do it with
just not for this round, but for future. One thing that has intrigued me when I looked at this earlier, and it's G2. You have talks of new construction. What are some examples of grants that have been approved for new construction?
So I would have to look into that for the capital investment plan and see. Right now, they have a stipulation on this round of grant funding that says you can't use CRP funding for infrastructure improvements, for like stormwater infrastructure improvements and that kind of stuff. You can only use it for the planning and engineering portion
Yeah.
of that stuff. I believe it's because there's a lot of infrastructure grants on the table right now from the last set of storms that we had and that kind of stuff. So they're trying to limit the funding that goes to infrastructure here.
Yeah.
That may change. They have different stipulations with each round of funding, so maybe that will not be a restriction next time. But I can look up some new construction.
Yeah, I'm
projects
just
and
curious
see,
as to what
yeah.
has been done, just because
Yeah.
joint town stuff and other things that are going
Yeah.
on in my head.
I don't know if anybody's done, I mean, like I said, there's 72 different action items. A lot of towns gravitate towards the vulnerability assessments for their first round of grants, which is where you like hire a contractor and come in and assess your infrastructure and assess your population demographics to identify community vulnerabilities related to climate change and extreme weather events and that kind of stuff. It doesn't work for every town to do that, but I know there's like a lot of like repeat action items like that. So I'm not sure if somebody's done that one yet. Yeah.
It just caught my attention.
Yeah.
Like a couple months ago.
Yeah. But that I would say is one of the bigger project action items.
Yeah, and that's why I said for future down, just
Yeah.
an idea, because it's definitely not this, but just always thinking, planning ahead.
Yeah, no, it's a good one for sure, to get funding for, because vulnerable facilities are important to identify, you know?
all right, so what's the next step that we need to take?
So, I'm gonna organize my workshop notes, and I'll reach out to you for you and I to meet and discuss everything. And then the next step after that would be passing the municipal resolution. And then, we need to get the select board together at some point to make a final decision. using the community input and using, you know, what their knowledge is from the town side on what they want to move forward with, what they want to put in the grant application.
Alright.
Yeah. Does anybody else have any questions or feedback or anything?
Now, it would, it would be wonderful, if, you know, like maybe some department heads were here, because it seems to apply to us so well.
Mhm.
Yeah.
Yeah, especially the roads.
Mm. Yeah.
Could be something we're missing. I mean, we can loop Will in and let him know what we're learning, have him look at the list and see what his thoughts are.
Yeah,
Okay.
yeah, yeah.
Yeah.
Is there an existing project for a culvert or some area that is
Not that I
causing?
can think of off the top of my head. The only project right now is just the Peck Road project and
H1?
H Road.
Do you have Jennifer's
Um,
number?
Well, he,
You know, there is culvert work, I think, on H Road, but I think most of that's already done.
I know Will did a lot of work like by the Hopper Road Dam, by the road dam.
Yeah,
And then also over by Goose Pond, Moose Pond, off of Hopper
Yeah.
Road, put in a lot of riprap to slow down water going into that pond.
mhm. All right.
Well, thank you guys for
Thank
coming
you.
out and giving us, if you haven't signed in already, please sign in. So I have your emails and I can send out updates for, you know, what the town decides on and that kind of stuff. If we need any more input, you know, it'd be helpful to have everybody's contact information too, so.
Yeah.